to the Gamegasm podcast. We put the O in radio. Hey, what's going on, guys? Welcome to the show. My name is Jeremy.
It's O'Brien, spiteful and intempered. I know the character well.
That's definitely not rap.
It is not rap. Mixing it up on you.
And Andrew's not here.
Nope.
Nice. As he says every time you have a quote. But anyway, Andrew's not here. He had some stuff to do, school, homework, whatever. And whatever his stupid excuse was.
Docking.
He's busy docking. So we're gonna do a two-man again.
Sure.
Fucking just a waste of life.
I know, right? Shai Hulud was the band, though, by the way.
Oh, I heard of them.
Twice. I really like them.
Yeah.
Also, their name is from probably one of my favorite books and/or favorite movies.
Yeah.
I guess I prefer the book more than the movie. Dune.
Oh, Dune. I thought you
Shai
said
Hulud.
Doom. I was like, with The Rock?
Yeah, I love that. I fucking love Dwayne Johnson. Soundtrack to my life. No, it's Dune.
Yeah, Dune.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Frank Herbert's classic.
That's a good movie, too.
It's a great movie, actually.
Yeah.
Kyle MacLachlan. Shit. Fuck Twin Peaks.
So is Sarah McLachlan.
Arms of Arrakis would have been a different thing.
In the eyes. Cue, like, sad puppy
Yeah,
video.
it just makes you depressed. It's like if you're trying to last longer than Sack, you just need a TV that's paused with that. You can play it and like, oh, those puppies are dying.
That's terrible.
But it would give you a few extra minutes.
Question. Can two men handle the sack?
Well, I know one man can.
Can two men of our caliber handle the sack?
There's not no limit to the amount of sacks that two of us can handle, sir. We have 2 hands.
Yeah?
2 feet.
That's 8 appendages.
And a mouth. Just putting it out there.
Just saying.
just saying. I'll dip my balls in marinara to give them a taste of home. But that's a Boondocks quote. Boondock Saints quote.
I fucking love that movie. I still haven't seen the second one.
I haven't either, but I've heard some like mixed reviews. It's kind of one of the things where you wait so long for a sequel, it's like Duke Nukem. You cannot live up to it. So at that point, you've waited so long, you know you're going to disappoint people.
I wonder if Half-Life 3 is going to fall into that.
I have to imagine to an extent, yes.
I imagine at this point, even if it's an amazing game, it will never live up to what people thought it was going to be.
But I will say, comparatively speaking, Half-Life is not, I would consider, a cult classic.
Right.
Boondock Saints was a cult classic. True. The problem is, people who like those type of movies are, like I have movies that I consider like my cult favorite. Those types of films, it's a different, I guess, connection to them.
Right.
So like a game, like a cult favorite game, maybe it's campy or it's cheesy or whatever, but if you move away from that, it seems like, oh, you son of a bitch. Whereas you take a great franchise, you change it, you're more apt to tolerate it.
Yeah. No, I understand that. A lot of cult following games and movies or anything usually stop at 1, too. It's a cult classic because it's 1. There's a very few that break out of that into
like
multiples.
Evil Dead.
Yeah.
A lot of horror movies
Clerks, was basically a cult classic.
Yeah, it kind of, I would say it almost got bigger just because of success. And honestly, on a side note,
just because of the success of Jay and
I
Silent
imagine my wife and I watched Clerks 2 before bed for like 6 months straight.
That's crazy. You did that with Metalocalypse too.
We did that a lot. We usually find something we really like and it was, veg out and watch like 20 minutes of something before bed.
I don't think Andrew's ever seen Clerks or Clerks 2.
That's depressing.
But they're both amazing movies.
I will say I'm not a Kevin Smith fanboy. In
No.
fact, I almost borderline don't like him just because I don't know, like the way he does something that seems slightly pompous. The problem I will knock him, as a filmmaker, he cannot write dialogue. It's fucking dreadful. Jason Lee,
That's why he doesn't have dialogue in any other movies.
Jason Lee has been in Mallrats. Okay, he's Brody in Mallrats. Then he's in Chasing Amy as whatever that fucking guy just slips in my head, the buddy of Ben Affleck. Then he's in Azrael and Dogma. And then in Jane Silent Bob, he's 2 different characters. So he's got like 4 different characters. They're the exact same fucking person. And you can blame that maybe more on Jason Lee's acting, but one person's writing the pen and the quips.
And he's even the same person in My Name is Earl.
Yeah.
I mean, he plays that same character, that same sound to his voice, that same... Yeah.
It's a rarity you see him outside that, but the point is, if you look at like Mallrats, T.S.'s character is Jason Lee's dialogue. He's essentially Dante Hicks from Clerks. The problem is, Kevin Smith writes like he talks, and that's not... He would make a terrible author.
Right.
If you're trying to write it from different perspectives to give some variety. I still love his fucking movies for the most part.
To be fair to him, there's a lot of just kind of... I don't know. I want to use the word like, I don't know what I'm trying to say. There's a lot of just off the cuff shit that is thrown in there. I'm sure. I know Jason Mewes does that. You know.
Yeah, but it's not as extemporaneous as you think.
Right. Yeah.
My only knock is the dialogue, and sometimes you can get a little preachy. But
it's and I'm using quotes here. It's smart dialogue. It's coming from a person who thinks they're smart, writing a joke that thinks that you have to be
witty.
smart to understand.
It's very avant-garde. I'm very witty.
Yeah.
It's I'm not an ordinary person.
Right. Yeah.
I'm not ordinary. I'm sorry. If you think that, you probably are.
Yeah. And Comic Book Men is an awful show, by the way.
That show's so fucking terrible.
Yes.
We tried to watch it.
Did you?
Yeah.
No,
we
it's
actually watched
terrible.
a few episodes and we're like, this is horrible. Like, the guy with the beard is that guy.
Yeah.
He's the guy those jokes are written for.
Yeah.
Those fucking douchey. Oh, no wonder you live alone, you fuckstick. And there's the Asian guy. And Walt Flanagan there. He's not so bad just because he's in Clerks and stuff like that. I've got it. And he's telling Steve Dave. He is Steve Dave. You know, it's hard to not have a place for him. The other guys can all eat a dick. That show's so bad.
I could never get into
Pawn
it.
Stars with comic stuff. And then, like,
But
you
worse.
guys joking around a microphone about Batman #7 or something.
And have you seen Jason Mewes acting in any other movie other than a Kevin Smith movie?
Yeah. Oh, no.
He's awful.
Yeah, he's not good.
He is a horrible actor. He was in some, like, we're getting way off topic, but he's in some, like, just B-rated video game movie. I can't remember what it was called.
But he's been in a couple things. The problem is, okay, take for example Zach and Miri make a porno.
Mm-hmm.
That is not silent. That is not
was
Jay.
terrible.
He wasn't terrible. And the point was, he was still Jay.
Yeah.
He's
No,
not,
the movie wasn't terrible, but I thought I didn't like his part in it.
Yeah, you needed somebody there. You could have probably gone with a better choice.
It was Jay. I mean, you're exactly right. That's why I didn't like it, because it felt out of place.
That's the problem with the Jason Lee. Essentially, every character is Brody from Mallrats.
Yeah.
Every fucking character.
I haven't seen many of the other actors that were in like Clerks and Mallrats outside of those.
T.S. Quint, that guy was in a surfing movie that's actually a snowboarding movie. I can't remember the fucking name of it. It's kind of a comedy. It's actually pretty good. I've seen him in a few things.
It just seems like you wouldn't be able to separate them from their characters in those movies.
Well, a lot of them are so small, like Michael Rooker.
Yeah.
You know him from Walking Dead and about 100 other movies. He's fine, but he's more of a bit pair. The chick that T.S. dated, her name is, why is I can know every person, I can't remember. She's been in lots of things.
The
and
Asian-y
she's just
looking
fine.
one?
No, in Mallrats. She's not Asian. She's
the
Michael
brunette?
Rooker's daughter. Yeah.
Yeah.
Brandy Svinning.
I don't know her. What was her character's name?
Brandy Svinning.
Well, I mean her fucking character's name. The actress's name.
I can't remember.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, she outside of it. Some of them are fine outside, just some aren't.
Yeah.
But
well.
we're way off.
Yeah, we
topic.
are.
We know we can handle a sack.
We need to reel it in.
Let's get a sack. We like movies.
We do.
And we don't care who knows. First up, from Stratford upon Avon in the UK.
Okay.
We got Jack.
Mehoff.
Sorry.
Sorry.
Hey, if I'm allowed those softballs, I expect you to hit them.
Yep.
He's saying that the last few games from BioWare have been under par, underwhelming.
Yeah.
He wants to think, do we think, is it more their fault, or they get lazy, or maybe they don't care, or too big for the britches, whatever it may be, or is it maybe EA is part of the influence? Basically, is EA rushing them to get games out because you know how EA is?
I think it's part of both. I think every company that EA has touched has been turned to shit. They've got a history of picking up smaller game companies and throwing them into the ground.
They turn
bleed them dry.
Every IP you have into a meat grinder until it stops selling.
Which is why the last few games have been Mass Effect and Star Wars games and whatever their other fucking IPs are. What else do they have? I don't even remember.
Mass Effect's the big one.
BioWare did BioWare? No.
No, I don't want to say Bioshock.
Did BioWare did Baldur's Gate, didn't they?
I think back in the day, yes.
Holy shit. I didn't even think about that. See, that's back when they were making good shit.
Well, the problem is, and I always go this, I do not really care for the yearly cycle.
No.
I don't think you need it. There are times it's applicable.
Yeah.
But if it's every year, it would be a problem. I think probably 18 months to 24 months is a much better...
I think even 3 years is fine.
It's fine, but I'm not offended if you do 1 and 2 years.
No.
If you've got enough material or technology has changed or a new idea or a prequel, sequel, what have you, that's fine. But when you do a year, you're giving yourself this imaginary deadline that you have to meet.
Yep.
And I don't know that, first off, it doesn't fucking matter if you meet it one way or the other, but now you put pressure, you put time, and you're going to shoehorn it in. When you have a big daddy like EA who's like, listen, we got to release Madden 72 this year.
Right.
We're going to do it. I don't give a fuck if it changes 2 things.
And on top of that, when you do that 2 or 3 years in a row, on year 4 and 5 and 6, it's expected that those games come out. And if you don't, now you're going to be losing
people are going to lose jobs.
Losing attention. Yeah, exactly.
And that's really what it comes down to, where EA's pressure. If you own it, they can control who works and what works. And if you're going to lose your job, we can hate. In all theory, if we were sitting there working at BioWare, honestly, I'm working for EA right now, and it was feed our family or produce Madden, I hate to tell you, we'd be producing Madden.
Yeah.
This isn't like a big political standing on my ground like some terrible issue.
Right.
This is just you make subpar video games.
Because you're trying to get money.
Yes.
What the fuck
I wouldn't look for other jobs, just saying.
What game did they... There's another IP that we're forgetting about. A big one, I think. Am I wrong? Mass Effect.
Mass Effect.
You can Google it on your phone real quick.
Yeah, I'm doing it right now, man.
I know they made Neverwinter Nights. Obviously, that one didn't continue. They did, if they made Baldur's Gate. I think they did. What did I say earlier? Oh, Star Wars. They made the Star Wars games.
They made Jade Empire, which I actually own. Dragon Age.
Dragon Age. That's the one we're forgetting.
You know,
and Inquisition's coming out this year.
I don't know if I feel like they're that falling off. I see what he's saying, though. Some of their last few games have been meh. I like Jade Empire, by the way.
Yeah.
Our original Xbox, pretty cool game.
I'm just... EA has ruined literally every company that they've touched. And it sucks to say that, but it's true.
It's like an abusive father. He ruins every life he comes in contact with, you know.
I don't get it. Like, I don't understand why. It's kind of like the Lakers, or it's kind of like the Heat now, or the Yankees. They just grab
things that suck.
Yeah. They
things
just
I hate.
Grab these companies while they're hot.
Right now.
Yeah. It's like they grab these companies while they're hot, and then they run them into the ground, and then when they're done with them, see you later.
Yeah.
And that's what they do.
Or they usually end the title, they keep the name rights, and all those people disseminate and start, startup companies or go to other places.
Yeah, whatever.
So at the end of the day, it's a little bit of both.
Yeah, it's a little bit of both.
But I have to just err on the side of the track record, which is EA.
Yeah.
All right.
100%.
Moving on to Eamon.
Eamon.
Yeah, with an E, so, I respect that. Video game armor. We take one for looks, and then one just for powers. Is there an armor you think just looks badass?
I don't know why. We answered this, I believe, at one point.
I think it was some kind of power. I don't think it was specifically armor.
But I think that when I said it last time, I said the Daedric armor from Oblivion. Or, was it Oblivion?
Yeah, it was Oblivion. Or Morrowind, doesn't matter, but...
The Daedric armor...
The only question is...
In all of Elder Scrolls, even in Skyrim, is
what about
badass.
weight, though? That's my only thought. He didn't say powers. He just went the first just for looks.
Yeah.
It weighs like... You have to have a lot of endurance. I hate to tell you, we're not going to have like crazy Nord endurance. We're going to be immobile.
Well...
In that case, I might go glass, because the glass armor badass.
What about conjured armor? Conjured armor? It still looked like Daedric, but it was weightless.
It was.
Aha. How about that?
It's true. Going outside of that, I don't know. I'm trying to think like, Nightmare in Soul Calibur? Yeah. His fucking armor looks so badass.
Yeah, that is like one specific piece of armor, like suit of armor.
But it's a cool looking set of armor. You wouldn't think about it a lot. No. I really like that one. For powers...
That's the hard one.
That's the hard one.
Because now I'm thinking of every power of every piece of armor I've ever owned in any game. Holy shit. And what's the purpose of the power? Is it a defensive power, an offensive power? You know what I mean?
What you would prefer, I assume.
I don't know. Because if we stay in Elder Scrolls with the Daedric, I mean, you could stay with Elder Scrolls abilities, and in that sense, I'm taking Chameleon. Easy. I'm just going to be fucking invisible walking around.
I will say,
permanently.
Like, Master Chief's armor would be tempting just because you'd have that bubble shield. You can fall from a cliff and it doesn't even kill you. And it's pretty much impenetrable.
Was his suit called Mjolnir?
Yeah.
Okay. Or was it just, I didn't know if it was just
Mjolnir
his helmet.
was the actual armor itself.
Yeah, I don't know.
That's kind of cool.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I'm sure other ones would forget because the thing is, it's just a vast array of...
I'm just trying to think of that one specific piece of armor that was like, yeah, you have to get that.
Well, a lot of RPGs and armor is just like, okay, I have iron, now I have steel, now I have bronze, I have silver, whatever. It's just a stepping stone. They don't matter.
Remember Morrowind? You remember the Quirus or Quirius, however you say that shit, of the Savior side? You remember that?
I don't know.
It was like a leather, like a medium armor that you could wear, and it gave you immunity to I gave you a percentage to ignore statuses that hit you, and then you could equip the Boots of Blinding Speed, and you would have a chance of ignoring the blind. So you just have like triple speed for nothing.
Ridiculous.
That's a cool combination of armor. That's
fun. But
I can't get out of Elder Scrolls for some reason.
I know you can't.
My head is stuck there.
Trapped in there. Gotta extend outside of there.
I don't know. So a lot of the armor from the Fallout series, like Fallout 3, was pretty cool. Like was it called Power Armor?
Yeah, it's a movie, but it's also a video game. Iron Man. That's more of an outfit, but it's still armor.
It's still armor.
That'd be pretty badass. Even though I just don't really get all of that into Iron Man.
No, but I mean, the abilities that you would get from it are pretty
badass.
Cool.
Pretty badass.
Any kind of thing with invisibility on it, and I can't think of.
Okay, we'll go. Remember the game Gymfire?
Yes.
I used to play. I don't know if you played with me a little bit.
Yes.
I played a lot. It was on Super Nintendo. It's a Koei game. The crown, which crown is a piece of armor, controlled all these different powers and dragons and everything. That crown. Because there was 5 different families. They each had a jewel, and then the crown itself had this big red jewel, and they each controlled a different dragon, had different magical abilities, and they protected the wearers. Like, you couldn't, like, attack it. Your sword would break. It's essentially impenetrable.
Right.
So that would be kind of cool.
Yeah.
I like that. That's thinking outside the box.
It's so hard to pinpoint one specific piece of equipment.
I hear in the game there's somebody who had bracers. These bracers that gave him, like, all kinds of cool powers.
Was that Drizzt? Didn't he have bracers?
He has a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
A lot of armor to bail his ass out of trouble.
And he had Twinkle and Moon Dust or some shit. Like Frank Zappa's children as weapons. He had Twinkle and something. Twinkle and Ice something. Andrew would know if he was here.
I know because he's read the books a lot more recently than I did, but I've read pretty much all of them.
It's like Twinkle and Stardust or something really gay like that.
I don't know that it's Twinkle.
I'm almost positive. If I Google it right now, his weapon is Twinkle and something else.
Icing Death, I think.
Yeah, that's it. Icing Death, yep.
I had to think about it because that's the one he got from the White Dragon and the Crystal Shard, very first book. Well, I mean, not the first book chronological. First book written chronological.
Right.
Okay. Good question, though, Eamon. Now we have a Wyatt Rosenbaum.
Wyatt Rosenboom?
Rosenboom? See, Wyatt, when you give us a pronunciation guide for a name that is extremely easy to pronounce.
Like Rosenbaum?
Yeah, like Rosenbaum. We almost didn't ask your question. Just going to be honest. I saw him like, did he really tell us how to... It's like saying, my name is Jones.
Yeah.
It's not Johannes. Johannes? It's John Smith, not John Smith.
Smith.
It's Rosenbaum. I've seen a few of them.
Was it Rosenboom?
Rosenboom is Rosen. Hey, no, I know I probably did that. He probably gets a Rosenbaum a lot.
Yeah.
So it's Wyatt Rosenbaum.
Okay.
So Mr. Rosenbaum, you're asking us a very good question.
Yeah.
Our favorite video game company.
Period. Shit.
Exclamation point. Question? It's tough to give one.
Yeah.
Honestly, I think if a gun to my head and I'm pressed to give one, it's probably me, Koei.
I see. I was gonna instantly say Nintendo, but God, I don't know, because I wouldn't say Nintendo is my favorite now, but over the course of my entire gaming lifetime, I played so fucking many Nintendo games.
Yeah, but I mean, you're talking about like not just the games that were on Nintendo. You're talking about
Nintendo, the company.
And I agree with that.
Yeah.
I just, if I was given, I don't know, Zelda or Mario or whatever it was, and a copy next to it was Romance 3 Kingdoms, I'm playing Romance.
Yeah.
Or Nobunaga's Ambition, or Genghis Khan, The Emperor, Liberty or Death.
If I want to step out from Nintendo, I could say Valve easily. Valve's made some of my favorite games. I was a huge Half-Life fan, huge Counter-Strike fan. Portal was so fucking awesome. Firaxis is good. You like the
strategies,
strategy games.
If I'm going like something different, like RPG, it might actually be working designs.
Yeah.
I fucking love working designs.
Squaresoft is an obvious choice.
I actually like Enix. I like Squaresoft and Enix when they were separate.
Right.
Square Enix, they've made good games, but it's never been the same since.
Yeah.
Bungie, it's a good company.
I like one game.
Halo. I like Halo Wars.
Did they make other games, or is it literally just Halo?
They made other things in the Halo universe,
but
I think they developed games now since then. Since they've changed courses and Halo's taken over by somebody else.
Yeah.
But I think if I had to pick one, it'd be Koei.
Yeah. Bethesda would be a good one to pick. Even outside of the Elder Scrolls series, they had the Fallout series. I mean, they've had
Elder Scrolls in the future.
Yeah, they've had literally their hands in a lot of different games that are like that.
And Koei had some good RPGs like Sayuki Journey West, Nintendo Way, the Ninja.
Yeah.
They had some other games outside of just strategy, and their Dynasty War games are fucking badass. And the very first Dynasty War was a fighting game. It was awesome.
Oh shit! What was that company? Who made Command and Conquer Red Alert? Before they were bought by EA. I can remember their logo in my head, but I can't remember their name.
Yeah, it is. I know what you're talking about.
They had some good games, a good run in the late 90s.
I hate to say Blizzard's a good company.
I don't hate to say that. They're a really good company.
Yeah.
They listen to their fans. They put out quality content. I mean, they're a good company.
WoW is whatever, but yeah.
But it was amazing
when it was,
in its time.
I don't actually regret my time in WoW at all, except that I didn't play other games I wish I would have played.
Right,
but,
yeah.
You know.
And that's the, I think we're going to dub it the Andrew syndrome. Andrew plays one game, and he focuses really super hard on that one game. Which is fine. There's a lot of people that play that way.
A lot. I mean, honestly, we talk about like Call of Duty games like that. A lot of times, it's people who focus one game.
Yeah,
they want to be good at that game rather than spreading the love.
I think you're the opposite. You would like to play more games. But
I am.
I'm in the middle, which actually you're kind of in the middle too, because you've got hundreds of hours in Civ, and how many countless of hours in games like Romance or Europa Universalis, stuff like that. So you focus on more on a genre.
Probably.
Whereas I focus more on kind of being in the middle. I play all genres, all games.
Of course, that's more now.
Yeah.
Because my gaming time is much, much more limited.
Right.
Previously, obviously, before we had kids, it was just all genres, all games.
Yeah. Andrew has historically just found one game that he likes and just dove into it, which is, I mean, when he does that, he knows everything about that game, top to bottom, back to front. So it's just a slight difference, but I know what you mean by I loved my time in WoW, but I wish that I would have taken some more time for other shit.
I always talk about that I missed games that I would have played otherwise. Because when I stopped playing WoW, it was right when I had my first child, and it's like that right there kind of cut the video gaming a little bit down.
Right.
When I could have had a year and a half or so or two of playing all kinds of shit.
Right. Yeah.
But good question.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you, Mr. Rosenbaum.
Mr. Rosenbaum.
Rosenbaum.
Anyway, in Andrew's absence, we thought we would take that time to talk about something that's near and dear to both of our hearts.
Yes.
We're both. We know that I am, because even when we were choosing our favorite systems of blank, eras, yeah, whatever they're called. What's that word?
Generation.
Thank you, Jesus Christ.
I'm here for.
I chose a couple Sega consoles.
You did.
We are big Sega fans, especially you and I.
Yes.
I don't know that Andrew had a Sega.
He had a Genesis.
Did he?
He did have a Genesis, but a lot of the games that he's played...
I thought his friend had a Genesis, and he had the Super.
You might be right, because
I think his friend had Sega Channel.
I imagine most, and I agree, I don't want to speak for him, but a lot of his experience with RPGs on Sega are through me.
Right.
You know, especially Sega CD, all that stuff. I had a Sega CD, I had a 32X, I had a JVC XI machine.
Yeah.
You know, I had...
That was the combo machine, yeah.
Yeah, it really was weird. It did some cool formats, but it wasn't like a big deal. I mean, I had...
How did they get the licensing to make that, by the way?
Believe it or not, Sega hasn't always been that great with their licensing. The thing is...
before we get into it, I'll just stop you there, because I know we're going to talk about that eventually.
Of course.
We're going to talk about the history of Sega. It had a major rise.
Yes.
It had a major downfall, and then it had a major rise again.
Yeah, and the funny thing is, their downfall wasn't as down as a lot of people think. But not a lot of things were actually still positive, and they were still a profitable company. It was just that they had shifted in '99 before 2001 when they finally ended production of Dreamcast.
Yeah.
So not that they were down. It just they were down.
They had a 5-year span there where they were negative.
Yes,
all 5 years.
That was partly
like 97 through 2002 or something like that.
Yeah. Well, sales and everything's affected, but their arcade still is profitable.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
You know, their arcade games still.
Sega as a company worldwide was down for a 5-year period.
Oh, yeah.
It's the only 5 years ever in his company's history, mind you.
Yeah.
Understand that. So when we say downfall, we don't mean their rapid decline of their actual company.
Yeah.
We mean the rapid decline of their hardware-based.
And that's really what we're focused on.
Size.
They no longer make consoles. And not to knock anybody who just makes software. Like, we just talked about our favorite software companies.
Right.
But at the end of the day, you're kind of like a minor leaguer. You don't make consoles.
When you come into the game, as a software developer and say, okay, I'm going to start making hardware. You are expected to be part of that hardware game from then on out if you're going to be a contender. If you fall off at some point, you're like, has been,
And they are, honestly, they are a hardware producer first. Now, granted, first off, they're an old company, started in the 40s. And by the way, not a Japanese company.
No, they were, hold on, don't tell me. They were started in Hawaii?
Correct.
Boom. Service Games.
Actually it was Rosen Games. Yeah. Service Games bought them out in the 60s.
I thought it was the other way around. I thought they merged. No, I don't know.
They merged, but Service Games was the winner in that one. Yeah. And that's where the Sega comes from.
Right.
But
SE from Service, GA from Games, yeah.
Correct, great. And they made a lot of arcade and pinball and fucking those, pachinko, things like that. All those things really what made them.
Yeah, they made a lot of the gambling machines, the fucking Correct. Whatever those things are called.
In the service station, like service station, like services and like soldiers.
Yeah.
Like army bases and shit like that.
Yeah. Which is pretty interesting.
It's
weird to have a company that's been around since the 40s, and they were, at one point, a massive contender in the home video game consoles.
Yeah.
And they... go ahead.
I was just saying, and really what most people in America are going to remember, and when I say most people in America, I realize they're not going to remember this. The first console to really come here was the Master System.
Right.
They had a system before that actually sold really, really well. It just didn't come over here.
Right.
They had another generation that came out, technically considered second generation because it's like 82, 81. That's second generation.
The SG something,
2000 or some shit like that. I think it's the S2000 or whatever it is. It looks like a Master System. It's a little bit different.
Yeah.
The
thing about Sega is that they had and correct me if I'm wrong, you know a lot more about the history of video games than I do, but they had a humongous boom in like the 70s and 80s because of the arcade boom.
They did.
And then
they lost their ass after their first console a little bit because the crash of all the mass-produced arcade games.
Because there were so many people starting to make arcade games,
and they relied a lot on that.
Yeah, and which is fine. That's how your company was. You were trying to expand into a home console company, which is great. And again, correct me if I'm wrong, but in my mind, one of the biggest faults of Sega as a company, let's talk about home systems for the time being, for what I'm getting ready to say.
Focused on.
Yeah. One of their biggest downfalls for their home systems from start to finish was their marketing.
Yeah.
I mean, they've been so poorly marketed and so poorly timed that they didn't compete like they should have.
See, I don't know that it's poor marketing. The problem is every console they've had, except for the Genesis, which is an anomaly,
right,
is successful in one area, not another.
Right.
It does something right, but not something else. Like, for example, using the Master System. The Master System was still making games into the mid-'90s in Europe and Brazil.
Yeah.
It dominated Europe and Brazil.
Yeah.
And
Australia, didn't it?
Yeah, it had a really good following there, too. And going on, Nintendo was still better, but the problem was Tonka, like Tonka trucks, handled all their fucking marketing in America.
Wow.
And that was a disaster. And it was and also problem with them in the first once again, I know it's not the first one, it's the second one, but it's the first one.
We're going to talk about their first one being the Master System.
Yeah, it was technically all the way superior to Nintendo.
Oh yeah,
they didn't have fucking games.
No,
that's the problem. They had a few great games and some other decent games. They had a litany of shit.
Well, that's been another problem they had throughout their entire time in the home industry. Is look at the Sega CD had no fucking games. The 32X didn't have any games. As far as total count.
Yeah, I agree with I don't agree with the first point. I agree with the second point.
The 32X?
32X was a bomb. That within a year they were already dropping it. It was in your bargain bins. I paid, I want to say it was like $11 or $12.99 for my 32X.
Yeah, and don't get me wrong. I don't want to say that there were no good games on Sega CD.
And CD actually sold pretty well. CD was not a bust. The problem,
I'm talking about their total library was very small in comparison to its competitors.
Well, what was the competitor? That's the problem. It really didn't have a competitor.
Right.
That's the problem. That's a whole other ball of wax.
Because it was sold as an add-on. It was technically a competitor of the Super Nintendo.
Yes. Well, yeah.
Kinda. I mean, it's the only way. It's like a half generation.
You're starting like the Atari Jaguars and 3DOs and the CDIs, all those, which are obviously not fondly remembered by most people because nobody fucking had them.
Right.
And we're milking a lot of money out. But the CD did a lot of things that had never been done before, and it was I really liked it.
Like used CDs.
And when I was talking about working designs, that was a company that actually started with TurboGrafx 16, but really came into its own, like Lunar, Vey, Dark Wizard, all these games all came out on Sega CD. Like, it was the RPG, because that's one drop that both the Master System and the Genesis did not have.
Right.
They had very few role-playing games.
Yeah.
Or even really adventure games, for that matter. They were really focused on action, which is cool, but I think as a long-term strategy, that's a real focus on kids.
It is, but you also understand that Nintendo wasn't focused on action. Nintendo was more focused on platformers and RPGs. Yeah, it is. But Sega was always like, we're not Nintendo. You know, they were always that. They had the Streets of Rage and the Street Fighters and that kind of stuff.
Well, yeah, but on the Super Nintendo, they were very similar. Just the problem was that
it's just what I'm saying is the marketing was marketed exactly to that adventure. You know,
edgy.
Edgy, yes.
It was edgy. You're trying to go from like a 13-year-old than a 7-year-old.
Right, exactly.
Which obviously, whether you like that strategy or not, it didn't work.
No.
You know, the problem was, I think, that their marketing overall wasn't great. Now, I actually like the Dreamcast marketing. The funny thing with Dreamcast actually won an award as the best console launch ever when it came out. It sold over 500,000 units in 1 week in America. Yeah. Problem is the exact opposite of the Master System. Dreamcast blew up in America. It actually sold great, was profitable in America. Japan didn't give a fuck about it.
Right.
Europe didn't give a fuck about it. Brazil, for whatever reason, loves everything that Sega does.
Yeah.
Like, they're still they're still making Neo Geo games in Brazil. I don't know what it is with Brazil.
They like Sega.
You know,
Sega!
Yeah, it's like, you know, Max Cavalier is down there buying fucking Genesis for the favelas. I don't know. But that was the opposite effect. Once again, marketing, they just couldn't get it as a cohesive strategy.
Yeah. And the Dreamcast launch was awful. It came out, the launch itself was good. The timing of the launch was awful. It came
That's
out,
a better statement, yeah.
It came out by itself, and then the follow-up to the PlayStation came out a year or two, something like that.
And that was the problem.
Later.
They were trying to jump. They kind of abandoned the Saturn because the Saturn did not do well,
right,
in America, especially. No funny. Well, God, we're going to jumping around the Sega thing. But
well, let's go back a little bit because we're talking about the Dreamcast. You said that the Saturn didn't go well
in America. It actually was dominant in Japan.
But again, the 32X didn't go well, which is before that. The Sega CD didn't go all that.
Actually was moderately successful.
But it didn't go all that crazy. It wasn't Genesis.
No, people bought it. They already had a Genesis.
Yeah.
You weren't luring people away, probably.
Exactly. So you had the Genesis. Great system. For every category. It was a pretty great system. The Sega CD, short-lived.
And worldwide, great, too.
Yeah. The 32X, short-lived. The Saturn, short-lived. So now everybody's like, fuck, I just bought a Saturn, now you're coming out with a new system?
And that's one of the things I think hurt, because when I remember getting this SAC, when it came out, it was $199.99.
Yeah.
We already fucking... Now, granted, the Genesis came out in 89, which preceded Super Nintendo by 2 years.
Right.
So you figure you come out in like 91, 92, that's been a few years, no big deal. But the fucking 32X came out like a year after that, so now I'm like buying an add-on. Yeah,
they weren't systems, they were add-ons.
And back then, I'm sorry, $500-$600, it isn't like now. A couple $100, you use it as a Christmas present, and you're draining all the cash flow out of people.
Right.
And the Saturn was prohibitively expensive. Now, it was an awesome, powerful system. It dogged the PlayStation, but... You know, congratulations. And once again, power is not everything.
Yep.
It launched without a Sega title. Or without a Sonic title.
Right.
It also
Which
launched
was a mistake.
Yeah, Knights is an amazing game. That's not the game you want to...
It's not Sonic.
No.
First
they packaged Virtua Fighter for us.
Yeah.
In America.
But even still, Virtua Fighters, that was a cult following.
I love Virtua Fighter, actually.
Virtua Fighter was not necessarily my all-time favorite fucking fighting game ever, but a lot of people loved it more than anything. And it again, those people probably played in arcades.
Oh, yeah.
Virtua Fighter was huge in arcades.
I played first in arcade because it was the most balanced of all fighting games I can really ever think of.
I forgot where we were going with this. What were we talking about?
No, just the statement of you're buying a lot of different things and you're having to continually spending cash. Whereas most other systems are giving you 3-4 years. Because back then, cycling was a lot quicker. Here's 3-4 years, boom. 3-4 years, boom. You're not having to continue to spend nickel and dime. Except that's not a nickel or a dime. It's a heavy investment.
Right.
And the Saturn had a lot of good RPGs. It had a lot of good games. It was powerful. That's the problem.
You can't keep releasing a Genesis for $200, then a Sega CD for however much that was. Was it $200? Was it 32X $200 as well?
I think it was $150.
Okay, so but the equivalent of essentially $200, $200.
I have to keep buying different games.
Yes, and now
so it adds up quickly.
And then they had didn't they have 32X games that were like a hybrid, and then they also had a Sega CD like mix match types games? I thought I remembered that. I could be wrong, but I thought they had games that required the Sega CD and the 32X to play properly. I mean, I may be wrong. I don't remember.
Not sure.
But you have all these. They're all awesome ideas. They're all neat. It's neat to have a big core system with small little add-ons.
You're trying to ride the money train too long.
Which
should have came out with something like the Saturn, but less powerful, like 93, 94, and then you wouldn't have to worry. And honestly, the Dreamcast came out because you were acknowledging the problems with the Saturn.
But the problem is that there were loyal customers that bought the Saturn and bought it assuming that you were going to support it like you did the Genesis, and you didn't. No. And the Dreamcast came out, and now they're like, well, fuck, I just bought a system. Now I got to buy another system. And you didn't support the last 3 you released, so why the fuck am I going to buy this? But people still fucking bought it.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I love my Dreamcast. The thing that's funny is, like, you think about Sega, there's a lot of things they didn't do, but a lot of things they did that were so neat, especially look at the Dreamcast. 56K modem. First online console game. First online game with voice chat.
Yep.
They had the first, they had Samba de Amigo, which is a first party game with attachments like that.
They had the memory cards with
VMUs.
Yeah, with the fucking
mini games.
LED on it.
Yep. They had the Seaman game, where you could talk to it. It progressed. All these different things. And Shenmue was probably one of the first real open world games.
Yeah.
Like a Skyrim, but it's done like fucking 99.
And it was easily modded for those people who like doing that. You could put custom soundtracks and shit in your games. It was a all around. It was the closest thing to a computer that's been released as a console
at that time.
At that time, yeah. So I mean, they did a lot of things right. The problem is, I don't know if it was bad luck or just really bad timing.
And in America, they actually held on to some of their. They didn't lose profitability in America until like almost a year after PS2 came out.
Actually, they peaked at like I remember seeing they peaked at like almost 70% market share or something at one point.
Like they were in America, of course.
Yeah, of course.
The point is, they did really, really, really well in America. And they almost held on after PS2. The problem is, PS2 is almost like an extinction level event.
Yeah,
it was a comet. It hit here, and everything died. But the lucky few, like Nintendo, was like a mammal. Yeah. It was able to survive the weather of the storm. It was a shrew, and it became us. They just couldn't. They weren't in a good position. They weren't smart monetarily, and again, they'd had 8 years of failures.
To continue their horrible pattern, their marketing on the Dreamcast didn't continue like it should have.
And America was awesome,
but
it failed everywhere else.
When the PS2 came out, it's like they stopped marketing. They stopped caring. They were like, oh, well, this will continue. And again, they made a mistake.
The head of Sony in 99 said that the future of Sega is shifting from hardware to software. So he saw the writing on the board, but you say that, but we're going to support Dreamcast. We believe in it.
Yeah.
And in 2001, you're stopping production.
Yeah. And that's another thing. In a 3-year span, they were like, oh, we're still going to support the Dreamcast, but we're gonna focus on software. Then a year later, they're like, just kidding, we're not going to support the Dreamcast. And then a year later, they're like, just kidding, we're going to be completely software. And then all of a sudden, they're a third-party software company. Like, it happened over the course of like 2.5, 3 years, and then Sega's just gone.
Yeah, and they're still around. They're still very profitable. I mean, like, they came up with a Total War series. There's a lot of series you don't think about that's a
Condemned.
Sega.
They were part of Condemned.
Yeah, they were. The NBA 2K series.
All of the 2K games.
All these games that really they've made, and they've been a good software producer.
Yeah. And
they still hold their IP well. The Sonic games sell really well.
Yeah.
They're actually pretty good, too. It's just that...
They announced last year that Sonic was 100% Nintendo exclusives, too.
Mm-hmm.
So that
makes sense. That was a good move. It's a kid-driven kind of thing, and Nintendo's the right home for it.
I think they should bring Alex Kidd back.
What? Alex Kidd. That's TurboGrafx 16. No, it's Keith Powers. Alex
Kidd was before Sonic.
Yeah,
he
was
the Master
one,
System.
Yeah. Thinking of wrong master, this is a piece of trivia. Originally, Lara Croft and Tomb Raider was supposed to be a Sega Saturn exclusive, and it was actually done on Saturn. But because of how badly Saturn was doing worldwide, they quickly shifted it to PlayStation, and they had already developed, I think, a sequel or another one already ready to go for Saturn. They canceled them.
Yeah.
So it's funny. What was supposed to be a mascot for Saturn, like they had advertising and all this merchandise and all this stuff to be a mascot for Saturn, became an unofficial mascot for PlayStation.
Yeah.
It's just those are things that are kind of funny. Yeah.
Shit happens.
It's just like working designs. The reason Sega and working design stopped working together is because the head of Sega was a dick to him. Believe it or not, and this is from like working design's quote. They were meeting and they were discussing things, and he's just like, well, it's RPGs, blah, blah, blah. He basically pooped on his games, pooped on his genre, and said that it wasn't very important to a company like Sega. And he said, okay, fine then. And boom, all the Lunar remakes, all these successful games that are completely filling a niche are all on PlayStation.
Yeah.
And that's the problem, too. Sega, looking at the history of them, they always ignored RPG game players. Now, I would say until about CD or so. The problem is, and if we had Andrew here, he would say, why did Andrew save up his money and buy a Super Nintendo?
I have no clue. Because he wanted it.
RPGs.
Yeah.
I mean, that's really what it is. If you wanted to play an RPG...
You had to have it.
You had to have it.
Same with the PlayStation.
A strategy game, for a lot of point. You're going to get a Nintendo or a Super Nintendo.
Yeah.
If you want an adventure game, you were going to get them.
The one system that I remember playing the most RPGs on was the original PlayStation. Like, there's so many different ones.
Yeah.
And it just seemed like they were just all coming into one spot. You know what I mean?
And part of the problem, too, is that so much for... PS1, yes, but PS2 especially, you started getting all these exclusive contracts.
Yeah.
Well, Nintendo...
What did Sony do that no other company did correctly?
CD medium.
Well, but I mean, besides the CD medium, because...
That's it. Square Enix did not want to make a game that wasn't CD.
Really?
Yeah.
That's
and after
crazy
the bad problem with Sega, and then Working Designs was pissed off.
What about Xbox, though? Xbox had CD.
But that came out way later.
I guess.
That was after the exclusivity contract was gone.
I guess. It seems so fucking weird to me that...
And Sony offered handsome upfront payouts.
Okay, so there's another thing.
Yeah. But it really was... Square Enix was completely CD medium.
It's like if you build it, they will come style shit.
They didn't need the advanced money. They already had a cash generation
right.
products. They were already well in the green. Or black, if you want to be more... tech or more
specific,
economical. Yeah. The problem was that they didn't want to do what Nintendo did. Was we're going to stick to cartridge. And no, the cartridge is dead. And they're right. Well, and we go to Sega, but it's Sega. They've been fucking up. Let's go to PlayStation.
Isn't it funny that we're getting ready to probably next generation go back to cartridge again?
It's very possible.
I mean, not like the big fucking I got to blow in my cartridge, but
thank God.
I mean, just to look at how everything has progressed. And it was like, oh, fucking cartridges, you idiots. And now it's on CD, and then it's on DVD, and now games are on Blu-ray. And then, there's not enough space. We're going back to cartridge.
Yeah, we're going to go back to an SD card or something.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, and so that's what happened with them. The problem is Nintendo is able to weather it because they have first-party titles.
Yeah.
And they have a niche.
Yeah.
Okay, they're like, we're going kiddie with 64, GameCube. We're going to ride it out this way.
Yeah.
We have our games. We have kids. Sega was always not really kiddie. It had some games, but
they were edgy. They wanted to be edgy.
But the problem was, at the PlayStation era, you're no longer the edgy one.
You're not edgy enough.
Now you're more like middle school age.
Right.
Well, middle schools emulate older kids. And once again, what did most people have? Most people started getting the PlayStation. And all the nerd or early adopters, they're going to a system that has the games they want.
Yeah.
You were caught in the middle, and you had nothing but Sonic and a few games to fall back on.
You had Nintendo, who was E for everyone. You had PlayStation, who was mature, and you were T for teen. Which is a shitty place to be.
Yeah, especially when you don't have any first-party titles.
Right. Your only first-party title...
How many Toe Jam and Earls can you sell?
The only first-party title you had that was anything quality was Sonic, and Sonic was competing with Mario.
Yeah, and hate to tell you, Mario's going to win that.
And you know what else they did with Sonic that was just a horrible, horrible decision? Why did we love Sonic? Because he's a platformer that goes really fucking fast.
Yeah.
And you go through the fucking stages.
And it was a really colorful, bright world when it came out.
The sounds were crisp and memorable.
Not stereo.
Yeah.
Sorry, Super Nintendo had that. Yeah, blast processing. Hey, one me many arguments.
The thing is that Sonic was Sonic because he was fast as fuck.
Yes.
The problem is that Mario didn't have that one overwhelming ability that everybody was like, I remember Mario because blank. You remember Sonic because he's fast. That's why you remember him. Mario's just a plumber. He shoots fireballs, he jumps, he does random shit that most other video game characters can do. He was the first big one. Sonic is fast, so when you start taking Mario and you put him into Mario Baseball and Mario Tennis and Mario Golf, you can do that because Mario is the face of gaming, basically.
And he's ubiquitous. He can be anywhere,
He could
everywhere.
be anything. You start putting Sonic in Sonic Olympics and Sonic Racing and Sonic blah, 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 and all this other shit, Well, all of a sudden, Sonic's just a regular guy. He's not fast anymore. So you take his one defining characteristic away from him, and you stop making actual Sonic games.
Sonic game's pretty good.
Oh, it is really good. But so was Diddy Kong Racing. But that doesn't. But Diddy
Kong's a bitch.
Doesn't have any defining factors.
No, you're right.
Sonic is fast. He needs to be fast in all of his games. You're taking away the one thing that he does well, which is run.
He's not going to get through like a blood doping. I'm telling you, WADA test him. He's going to probably come positive for something.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe. I mean, when you put him in, you're not going to put him in the summer games because he would win every race. You know what I mean? It's like that's the thing. It's like you make him human, quote unquote, by taking away his super speed, and he just becomes a guy in the game.
Yeah,
it's just a blue hedgehog. Nobody fucking cares anymore. Start making more Sonic games. Well, not start. It's fucking too late now.
Yeah, they make some. That's more of a now problem, but I don't know.
But they started getting away from that in the Dreamcast era.
Well, Saturn was the one.
And Saturn.
Saturn released with Knights, which is a really cool game.
Yeah. But it wasn't Sonic.
And also Saturn had a modem too. I keep forgetting about that because it actually could go online. You could actually have like a keyboard for my Saturn.
It was like a 14.4 or something.
It was fucking slow as shit, but you could get online, by God, and surf the web and have your keyboard with your Saturn. I keep forgetting they had a fucking modem too. But I mean, you got away from what you had. You're in a bad spot, and that's what hurt you.
You can't.
Saturn had some great games. Saturn had some working design games, but eventually everything went away from Sega because how Sega was run, and Sega really. And this is from everything I ever read, Sega always really believed that it was still 1990 in their head. Even when it was 1996, 96, 97, they weren't the big kid in the room. They could not treat people like they did back then and say, here's what we're going to do. We're going to keep all this money from you.
Yeah.
And people are like, well, fuck that. I'll go somewhere else.
I'll go to PlayStation. I'll go to Sony right now.
Yep.
And here's the thing. You said that they were constantly living like it was in 1990. Another thing that happened, Mario solidified himself as the mascot of video games. Sonic was second, always behind Mario. The problem is that you got to a point where if you don't pound Sonic into the faces of everybody who buys your systems, like you didn't do on the Saturn and really on the Dreamcast. I mean, there was a Sonic game, the 3D Sonic or whatever the fuck that was. But look at every system that Nintendo has released. Mario this, Mario that, Mario this, Mario that. It released with Mario. Here's a Mario game.
On Saturn, you released a Virtua Fighter.
Yeah.
I love the game.
Sure.
Why did you not release what the game everybody wanted? Sonic.
But at that time, that was the time when these faces of games and these mascots were going away. Look at Crash Bandicoot. It was the quote-unquote face of the PlayStation. He didn't really last that long. Because who's the mascot of the 360? Who's the mascot of the PS3? You know what I mean? Those mascots are gone by the wayside, and if
Except
you don't,
for Nintendo.
Yeah, and if you don't pound that into your customers' faces, they will, and that's what I think. I'm not saying it was the decline of Sega as a home console, but I'm saying it didn't fucking help.
The problem is there isn't a single decline.
Yeah,
we could talk about this forever. The point is, there's so many things that were going wrong for them.
It was a culmination.
Oh my God.
Of problems.
We need to get a fucking soundbite for that. Every time I have it, I'm like be able to hit it. Culmination. No. First of all, they didn't have the games that fit certain genres. That's a weakness. That's the thing that I always hate about the Genesis, to be honest with you. When we go with the favorite console, it will never be the Genesis for me.
Yeah.
Simply because it didn't have RPGs. It had a few strategy games, but if I can get them from both systems and you're lacking something, you had an inferior controller. You didn't have...
Oh, God, let's talk about that, too.
You had inferior controller. You didn't have the same amount of colors and sprites as the Super Nintendo. You didn't have the same sound capabilities. I know you came out earlier, but guess what? As a consumer buying in 91, I don't give a fuck.
Right.
I don't care...
I don't care who came first.
Yeah, this isn't a fair race.
No.
I just want to buy the best product at that time, and Super Nintendo was clearly better. Super Nintendo had all the fucking RPGs and had all the strategy games you had plus more. So
and your Mario titles that you wanted from the first game. Or from the first
play
system.
Sega, I can just go and play Mario World, which by the way is a fucking awesome game anyways. Dude, I always talk about Link to the Past. I wish I played Link to the Past. There weren't
Mario Kart.
There weren't a whole lot of games. And the games that were like that on Sega, you had to find and hunt.
Sonic Spinball though, dude.
Oh yeah. I mean, it was shining for us when we go back to that fondly. The reason we remember that so fondly
is because it was the only RPG on Sega.
Except for Phantasy Star, which I will go ahead and say hands down, one of the most underrated RPG franchises. I will stack up Phantasy Star against any fucking old school RPG series, and I'd like to see who comes out.
Yeah.
Phantasy Star was amazing.
Yeah. I didn't play
and
enough
4.
Phantasy Star to do it justice.
I agree. I had to fucking at the time. Not that it's that expensive, but it's pretty pricey to have a copy of Phantasy Star 1 on Master System, especially if you have like the strategy book and everything.
Yeah,
which I do.
All right.
Yeah.
Big baller over here.
Yeah, I actually got that one to play with Andrew, and oh my god, dude! Like every RPG on regular Nintendo, I'm sorry.
Oh yeah.
You just gotta take notes.
Oh yeah.
That game is amazing. And that's kind of the thing. There were games out there, but you had to fucking find them.
Yeah.
And that's frustrating.
Well, I mean, we could beat this dead horse all day. I mean, the problem is, I think there are two major factors that failed the Sega invasion of the home console war, or whatever you want to fucking call it.
Because it was a war in the early 90s, and really, now it's a stabilized front.
Yeah, exactly. You're going to get 3 systems
but the 90s were a battlefield.
Oh, yeah. Love is a battlefield.
I know, damn, it's like band guitar. Fucking headband wearing whore.
I think the two major factors in the falling of Sega's home console, participation, was their poor marketing and awful timing.
Yeah.
And when I say awful timing, I mean the short lifespans of all their little add-on quote unquote systems that they had, the short lifetime of the Saturn, and the timing of releasing the Dreamcast just unluckily before the PlayStation 2 happened.
The only thing I would say, and I would actually probably almost put above marketing, would be, the funny thing is what they do now. That's software.
Yeah.
They never had the games.
No.
The reason that the Masters didn't win was partly marketing, but it was also they didn't have games.
They didn't have first-party games.
They didn't have... They did have some, like Space Harrier was a great first-party game.
You're not going to sell millions of copies of Echo the Dolphin.
No.
You know what I mean? Like, I just don't understand some of their choices software-wise, like you said, which is weird that they're a software company now.
They just did not have enough games on any of their systems. They always were outshone by their competitors.
And the good games that were on Genesis were available on Super Nintendo. And that's the problem. Like, Sonic was it.
Yeah, I mean, there were some other games, but there weren't very many.
Right.
And that's the point. If I can get every game on one console on another, you cease to lose that advantage at that point. Yeah. I'm going to go the one that has more things.
Right.
And that's why they were always second fiddle to Nintendo. And then when the 90s came out, they just were unprepared for that shift. And it was a dramatic shift.
And again, like you said, they were stuck in the early 90s. And when the late 90s hit, they were like, fuck, what do we do? Which is why they had that horrible company 5-year deficit that they had.
Yeah.
And I don't even know, I would assume... I don't know what drew them out of it. Did you hear, like, and I don't know if this is true or not, but in like the late 90s or early 2000s, there was some guy that was like the president of some Japanese company, like as they were horribly failing, like donated like $700 million or some shit like that.
Well, part of it too is that like they had a failed pairing with Bandai. And
that's another thing. They had a lot of failed partnerships.
Yeah, Bandai. I mean, they did a lot. They did like Sega Fun World. They had these theme parks in UK, China, Japan, and Australia that were eventually... They did a lot of things that were just not good ideas.
Right.
What really brought them out, funny enough, is software sales. And the thing about all economics, that 5-year period is partly put on by console R&D, console development, parts, material, manufacture, and you have to pay for that for so long. And once that's off your books... Now the biggest part of your expenditures are gone.
Right.
So honestly, their arcade games, funny enough, came back because people stopped making arcade games, and they were one of the biggest that still did.
Right.
And guess what? People still play arcade
games. And in
games.
Japan, arcades are still massive.
Yeah, a lot of places they are.
I don't even know where an arcade is here, other than like you go to like a family restaurant place.
Yeah, there are still arcade games like Gaddy Town, a place like that, or Showbiz.
Yeah, but those types of games, they're all like those ticket-based bullshit games.
But there's still some new games there.
Yeah, but there's very few actual arcade video games anymore.
Correct.
They're all these ticket and fucking prize grab bullshits. I want to go to an arcade and just pop some quarters in and play like joystick fucking video games.
Think of that. They had the first game that played for a quarter.
Yeah.
Their first soul-made game called Periscope.
Back in the fucking Periscope, 60s. Dude. That game...
First game took a quarter to play.
And that game was a major success.
It was.
And they released the first 3D.
They did. Subcon or something like that.
Something to do with fucking submarines again.
Yeah.
Which is interesting. I don't know why they got fucking hard on for submarines, but
I don't either.
But yeah, that was pretty. Sega, I remember. You remember the I used to work for Putt Putt, and there was like a trucker game.
Oh yeah.
Where you drove
like
a semi.
Or
that was a
Sega
game. I mean, there's a lot of things that Sega did well on the arcade
and
side.
that still makes them a lot of money, and that's what helped bring them out. We're not saying like they're dead or something like that, because obviously not. With their Take-Two Interactive with 2K games and Total War, which is ginormous, the money thing is not an issue now. The problem is, I think what we're saying is, makes us sad, is we do remember, even their failing consoles, I remember falling. I like the Saturn. Yeah. I love the Dreamcast.
Same with Nintendo. I remember the GameCube fondly. I remember the N64 and the Wii fondly. I mean, I remember everything that they did. I held it in high regard because I liked Sega.
And the sad thing is, Sega is never coming back.
No. Console-wise, no. No. They won't make that mistake.
Just
because your name is Sega doesn't mean you have an easy entry back into the console war.
It's easier than, any other game. Yeah,
Jim's video game system
well,
or something.
it's easier than any other probably game.
Yeah.
At least you've got a history of making some good ones, and you could draw people in. But not impossible. It has to be done really, really well.
Yeah. So, I mean, we could keep talking all day long.
You did say something about the controllers, though.
Oh, terrible. The Dreamcast controller, blech.
The
Genesis controller, bleh.
Believe it or not, was part of the Master System.
It's a Nintendo controller.
But it had a 360 D-pad.
Yeah.
And the buttons were just better.
Yeah.
It was a better shaped, better molded controller.
Genesis
was poop compared to the Super Nintendo.
Why did you...
So wide!
And why did you give me 6 buttons? Like on the future... I don't know.
The long run was just 3, A, B, and C.
Yeah, A, B, and C. But even that, they had the turbo pads that had 6 buttons. Yeah. And was it the Saturn that had 6 buttons?
Saturn had 6 buttons.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
No, Saturn I think had 5. A, B, C, and then you had your 2 triggers.
It's just, the controllers were always so weird.
Although I know it's wonky and weird, for whatever reason, I liked the Dreamcast controller.
It did feel good in your hands, but it was
had
still
to have the VMU in it. Otherwise, it felt so light you wanted to throw it away.
And to hit the start button, you had to fucking take your hand off the controller and use your thumb. I mean, it was just, their controllers have always historically been massive and odd shaped. And they always felt good in your hand, but build wise.
And the problem is they're not as good as the competition.
Yeah, exactly. And that's the issue. The N64 controller is regarded as one of the worst controllers ever.
Yes.
Look at that fucking thing. It's so fucking weird.
And it's terrible. Oh my God. I can never.
You can hold it 2 ways. What?
Yeah, can I hold it over a trash can? It's so
over
bad.
A fire?
Yeah, it was such a bad controller. But Super Nintendo had you hands down fucking pants.
Oh, yeah.
As a controller.
Oh, yeah.
Then the Saturn, I'd probably say that was not terrible, but I'm sorry, the PlayStation was a better controller.
PlayStation was an infinitely better
controller. And if you compare the GameCube, that was a better controller.
And until the 360, the PlayStation was the best controller you could buy. Those DualShocks for PS2 were amazing. The 360 just came out, and I'm sorry.
Such a good one.
That is the best controller in the history.
So amazing.
Oh, yeah. It's just so good.
Next to the Jaguar.
Yeah.
With 78 buttons.
7,000 buttons. Like you want to make a fucking phone call or
fucking do dot matrix up there. I don't know the fucking, it's craziness.
So anyway, that's it. That's our thoughts on the history of Sega and why we think they succeeded, failed, and then succeeded again.
One thing a lot of people don't go back and play those games or experience Sega just because it's a relic. Now, if you're 15 or 20...
You're like, what's the fucking
think
Sega?
Think about it. If you're 20 right now, your first game was probably 99, you probably never played a Sega console.
Probably not.
And that's kind of sad.
May have played a Dreamcast. Because, albeit the fact that Dreamcast was a flop in comparison to the PS2, which is unfair. But
it was big in America.
Yeah, but worldwide was essentially a flop.
I'm saying if you're 20 right now, you're born in middle of 94, you're 5, middle of 99, Christmas time, you're 5, your parents buying you a Dreamcast.
Well, Crazy Taxi was humongous.
Oh, God, such a good game.
I mean,
yeah.
We forget about how good some of the games on Dreamcast were, and they were highly advertised.
And they had Skies of Arcadia. They had a lot of really good games. That was a really one I really, really liked. Soul Calibur.
Soul Calibur, yeah.
Jesus, I mean that's one of the...
I thought you were thinking of an RPG. I was getting ready to say Soul Calibur.
Soul Calibur, so good.
And it's just a matter of it's just the worst timing ever. It's right at that point when the Dreamcast came out, gaming itself made a shift, and the cause in that shift was the PlayStation 2, your competitor. The cause in that shift now with the PlayStation 2, now video games are a normal thing.
Well, I will wonder how all would have played out if there'd never been an Xbox. Because the Xbox came out before the Dreamcast was done.
Yeah.
If there had been no Xbox and those sales had not gone away, I wonder how the shift would have been. Sega maybe could have weathered it. Maybe they would have thought about weathering it just because...
They would have tried. I still think they would have failed.
Well, you never know about their next console.
You never know.
You never know.
That's the issue. And you know what?
The problem is your weakness allowed Microsoft to think they could enter it, and they did.
Yeah. Yeah. It's just the birth of Nintendo, or the birth of Sony, or the birth, fucking shit, not the birth of Sony, but the birth of the Sony PlayStation was because of Nintendo's weakness.
Yeah. Well, not weakness, error.
Yeah, error.
Being
a dumb choice.
Idiot.
Yeah, exactly.
Fuck Sony.
But anyway, so we'll move on. Since Andrew's not here, we're not going to do a game. We're not going to do a fucking news segment. That's Andrew's segment anyway. We're just going to skip it. Do you want to even talk about the retro game, or do you want to go back when Andrew's here?
Go for it. You won last week. It's dealer's choice.
Let's talk about it. Why not?
Okay, yeah.
I was thinking about a game that I played so fucking much of.
You played so much of a game? I've never heard of this.
Yeah.
Lies.
And this game is a little game that you might know called Mortal Kombat.
Mortal Kombat! It's funny, I always think about the movie that was never in any game.
Yeah.
That soundtrack wasn't half bad, though, by the way.
But specifically 3, with Smoke and Reptile and
Noob
Sector
Saibot.
and Sector and Cyrax. Talk about a game.
Baraka.
I mean, I still remember the blood code for Sega. It wasn't ABACABB? Mm-hmm. Why do I remember that?
Well, you had to put it in every damn time, because why did you have a blood code? Fucking Japan.
Yeah.
That's like, there's lots of games like that. Samurai Showdown. There's all kinds of games where it's all uncensored in Japan. They ship it here, and for whatever reason, Americans can't handle it. We're not Australia, for God's sakes.
No. And Mortal Kombat, that was one of the first games that really pushed the envelope.
Oh, violence? Yes, without a doubt.
You have no Mortal Kombat, you have no Grand Theft Auto. You don't have half the games you have
later.
today. Yeah, exactly. You don't have half the games you have now. No Manhunt. I mean, these games are all no Rockstar game, really. But I mean, think about that.
Well, there are other. I would say I'll give them a large portion. Like Wolfenstein was pretty violent. I mean, headshots, blood. There were other games around the same time, but nobody was as visual, and you could see it. You knew about everybody knew about Mortal Kombat. Who brought the ESRB rating board and Congress making acts against violent video games?
Yes,
because it was so huge.
And it was. And you're right. There's blood. There was violence. There were gunshots and explosions in other games and body parts in other games. But you didn't take a guy's head and rip his fucking head off and have his spine dangling. I mean, that was
such a hard fucking one to do, anyways.
And I mean, even all of them. Just think of like Scorpions, where he just burned you alive into a skeleton and you crumbled. I mean, there were a lot of those games where those moves that were just like, holy fuck. And it was so cool to figure them out.
Uppercut them and they fall off the stage and the fucking...
land in the spike pit.
Or the thing that like chewed them up into bones.
Oh yeah, the little grinder at the bottom. Yeah. Like that shit did not happen. And I was just thinking, I was like, what was a game that was controversial? Because we don't really talk about controversial video games all that much.
There's not that many.
Yeah. But games that really like shook the fibers of gaming itself. And that was one of them.
Were you more of a Mortal Kombat guy or a Street Fighter guy?
I was more of a Mortal Kombat guy.
See, I actually, believe it or not, I think I probably played... I don't say more. I think I was actually more of a Street Fighter person.
I played them both equally, but I liked Mortal Kombat more than I did Street Fighter.
It's a tough one for me. I don't know if
I played a shit ton of Street Fighter 2. A shit ton.
Oh, well, everybody plays Street Fighter Turbo.
Yeah, absolutely.
But I mean, I don't know. The thing is, I will say too, that era of like fighting games, playing with your friends, playing against your friends, is just so much fun.
Oh yeah, and there were a lot of games too, like that fucking, what was that Clay game?
Claymates.
Was it Claymates?
I thought it was.
No, it's Clay something.
I know what you're talking about. The guy looked like Elvis. It was on Nintendo. It was a Nintendo game. I thought it was Claymates, but
yeah, it was a Rare game, wasn't it?
Uh-huh.
Yeah, and they had that. They had Killer Instinct, fucking Street Fighter,
all
Virtua Fighter, Soul Calibur,
King of Fighters,
Tekken, Virtua Fighter, Mortal Kombat,
Samurai Showdown, which I like a lot.
There were so many of those games, but none of them had the impact on the gaming industry that Mortal Kombat did.
No, I agree completely.
And not in a negative or a positive way, just that is really what pushed the envelope and set that path towards the games that we have now.
Do you remember the secret code that could make you play Galaga?
Oh God, I remember that.
You could play a little spaceship.
Yeah, it wasn't actually Galaga, but
it was like a ripoff because they were Trade West, so they had a lot of games they made like that. And Galaga was just like Galaga. I can't remember what game it was, which one it was. You could do the code on, but it was really cool. It's like, oh my God, I used to do it all the time.
Yeah, I don't know why I remember ABACABB
and Goro.
Goro.
They had pretty cool bad guys. There's only 2 of them. But, I mean, it was pretty cool.
But the whole premise of the game, you're a fighter in a fighting tournament, and it's a live or die tournament. Even the guy...
It's Bloodsport in a video game. Because I think it actually might have been... I want to say that was actually like part of the...
Bloodsport Jean-Claude Van Damme movie.
It's surely... That's a great movie.
It was a good movie. Is that the one where they had the head and they had to slam it on the spike to score? Or
no.
What? Oh, I always confuse those. I remember Bloodsport, but there was a game or a movie, and my dad had it on VHS, and it was a sport game. That's why I always confuse Bloodsport. It was a sport where there's all these dudes with like chains, and it was like they were naked, but they took a bunch of shit from the junkyard and made their armor. No, they weren't naked, but I was like, it was like
whatever.
It was like a bunch of guys went into a junkyard and found like fucking
armor.
Yeah, and they made homemade armor, and then they played this game of fucking like it was like football-ish where they were like tackling each other and like killing each other on the field and shit. And they had all I remember was they had a fucking severed head, and to score they had to like spike it on a fucking spike behind the goalie, quote unquote. I can't remember what the fuck the name of that movie was. If there's anybody who's in like their 40s that may know what I'm fucking talking about, please Jesus tell me what the name of that game was.
I had no idea.
But I always confuse that with Bloodsport.
Yeah,
I know Bloodsport is Jean-Claude Van Damme.
Bloodsport's a great movie. But, I mean, that's really what it is in term of a video game. It just, I agree with you completely. Sometimes you may forget the impact. And as far as we're talking about people like, go back and play this game, I doubt we're finding people don't know or played a Mortal Kombat.
Yeah. And to be fair, I haven't played most of the new ones. I know they went to the 3D where you move around like Soul Calibur was. I
think I played one on Dreamcast, or it was on PS2 the last one I played. I mean, it was Xbox. It was right around that time I played one, so it's probably been 10 years.
Apparently the new one was really, really well received. Like, really, it wasn't a huge game, because it's Mortal Kombat, and there's not really big fighters anymore.
It's not against them. It's fighters.
Fighters are gone.
Fighters.
So it's just like a platformer. You try to release a platformer right now, people are like, the hell are you
nobody
playing?
plays fighting games with their friends anymore.
Yeah, exactly. It's all online bullshit.
That's what people used to do. That memorizing moves and Fate's having a strategy guides, weren't always around, or not everybody had them.
Yeah, nobody's going to spend the $20 on a strategy guide now when you can just go to Google and type it in, What was the name of the brand of those strategy guides?
Strategy games. There's all kinds of ones.
There was one big one.
Bradley.
No. Fucking shit. I don't know why I want to say Namco, but obviously I know it's not Namco. But it's
the beginning of every song. Yeah. Namco.
But it's a thing like that. Fucking shit. It's almost like, it was a staple.
Was it like Namco? Namco.
Sega. I can't fucking remember. Sega. I know somebody will know that. But, anyway.
I also remember it as an arcade game, too. More the first one.
See, I remember the second one more in the arcade.
Really?
Yeah, I played the first one on Sega, and
I owned them on console, so I remember them more for playing console.
Yeah, I owned the first one on Genesis, and I owned the first one on Game Gear. And I remember the second one came out, and I played it first in the fucking Washington Square Mall.
How did we forget about the Game Gear in our Sega conversation?
Well,
yeah, that's exactly right.
There was they had another handheld. What was that?
There's a Nomad.
The Nomad.
That allowed you to play Genesis cartridges on the go, which is actually a cool concept.
But that failed horribly.
Well, because you released it in like fucking 96 or whatever. After it's like Nintendo going, hey, I got this new system. You can play your Nintendo games on the go. Cool, I'll just download them or whatever. It's like, you released it. If you released that in like 93,
it would have been huge.
It'd been huge.
Yeah.
It'd blown up. You should release that instead of the Game Gear. Problem is, you can make money on the hardware and the software on a new system, not on the Nomad.
Right.
But it was a cool idea.
It was a good idea. It flopped, and the form was terrible. It looked like a book. I remember that. It had like your left hand held like a rounded part, but the right side had like tapered down, and it was like,
it was weird.
What am I fucking supposed to do with this? I can't put these up my ass,
Can't put these up my ass.
So,
want smoke.
Anyway, we don't have to talk about Mortal Kombat for that long. I just remembered, I remember going and Sector, the red one, was my dude. He was my guy. I could combo you for days with Sector.
I much preferred him to Cyrax.
Yeah.
Mostly because the red versus yellow.
Oh, really? I just preferred his move. He had the straight shot missile, the honing missile, the teleport uppercut.
Oh, God, I love the missiles.
I just remember, there's just one memory that I have of sitting in the mall in the corner fucking little area where the arcade was, and I bet I beat 10, 15 dudes lined up next to me. And that's something that you don't experience anymore. You don't experience being the king of the hill at an arcade game with people lined up to beat you. You don't have that anymore.
No.
It's all online.
That lining up, it's what's cool about it. You just
And then you got people behind you going, "Oh shit! Oh my god! You fucking!" You know what I mean?
It's fun.
It created what the game actually is. It's a fighting tournament. It created that in the arcade, and you don't get that shit anymore. And that's why
Online
I remembered.
Totally cannot capture that.
Yeah, no, you cannot capture being able to be sitting next to each other playing a game, unless you're playing a very, very slow paced like Civ. I don't mind playing Civ online, but Hot Seat is always more fun.
Much more fun.
But it's so slow paced. You can talk to each other. You have time.
It's a different world altogether.
Yeah, exactly. It's just those experiences that I had with Mortal Kombat and the whole game 1, 2, and 3 specifically.
Yes.
After
that, it's like blah blah blah. Did you really like the animalities?
Babalities, animalities, I didn't care.
I liked the animalities. Babalities, I thought were kind of.
I thought the friendships were kind of funny.
They were like, I liked Baraka did like the
paper
dolls.
Paper dolls.
It was okay. It got a little much.
Yeah, it's just they were making fun of themselves, which I think is always good.
Yeah,
I always like, when somebody can make fun of themselves. But yeah, it's just one of those games that I don't think it's necessarily as it defines me as a gamer, but it definitely defined a certain portion of my life. I remember going to my friend's house and saying, "Oh, dude, I figured out how to do the Sub-Zero's fucking
move,
combo or whatever," because there were combos that you had that would be a certain percentage combos, and you do that combo, and it'd be like a 13 or 14 hit combo, and it would take off a certain percentage of that person's health, and I'd be like, "Oh, dude, I can totally do Sub-Zero's 75% combo or some shit like that," and I remember learning that myself. There was no fucking Google and shit, I remember writing that down and practicing it and just fighting my friends, be like, I guess I'll pick Sub-Zero, and then just fucking destroying them. You know what I mean? It was always that mind game. Be like, I'll pick, Sector, and then I just fucking go ham. It was just, it's one of those things where that was that fondness that we remember about video games that doesn't exist anymore. Yeah,
that's the thing about it. Like, part of our history is fighters, and that's something that people now do not play. So maybe not so much go back and play Mortal Kombat. Go back and play fighters.
Yeah, check them out.
Play fighters with a friend.
Yeah.
If you do that, you'll understand why there's a cult. There is a cult following for fighters.
And I think the underlying message of this entire podcast, we say it over and over and over again, is play video games with your friends in the same room.
Yes.
Get off the fucking internet and play next to each other. That's what I liked about the Wii U, is that we're not going to play online. You have to fucking be here to play with me. You can play online, but it's that fondness that I remember fucking sitting next to somebody playing Mario Kart or playing Mortal Kombat or playing a video game, and it's just that you won't ever get that back.
No.
Go back and experience that, and have a LAN if you have to do it, to bring your friends over. How much fun do we have sitting next to each other?
It was a good time.
Yeah, playing a video game with our computers here. I mean, it's one of those things that you have to experience.
Agreed.
But anyway. Are you done?
I'm done.
I'm done. Let's wrap this up.
Let's do that.
We're a little short. I feel like we went a little longer than we probably could have.
Yeah.
But, these are usually an hour 30, hour 40, so it's going to be a little shorter than normal.
But that's good.
That's good. Get Andrew's
it's a lot of bang
windbag ass out of here. No, I'm just kidding. we cut an entire segment. 2 entire segments. Well, one's not that long, but the game takes up quite a bit of time.
It does.
So anyway, guys, we will be back next week. I don't know how we're going to do a retro game next week, since we did it this week.
I don't know.
We'll think of something.
Maybe we won't have one. We'll have to just cycle off for a winner.
I'm going for my 3-peat. My first chance ever. All right, guys, we're going to get out of here. Thanks for stopping by and hanging out with us. We'll see you next time.
Deuces.
Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you next week on the Gamegasm Podcast.